Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex Stephenson and Jake Faas here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. One day late, I apologize for that. Actually, it was my fault this time around. The internet at my place was all messed up, so I had to postpone. Thankfully, Jake was still available, so we've got a ton to get through for this podcast. We're starting Invasion, which is exciting. It was actually the first block to be included on Magic Online. So was that probably what, 8th edition, Jake?
Yeah.
Maybe 7th edition because they had that online too.
Actually, yeah, it wouldn't be 8th because it's got the old border, and the new border didn't come out until Mirrodin. So yeah, it's got to be like 7th or 6th into 7th, something like that. No, I think it was 7th was the first one online, though.
Okay, yeah, I think that's right too because I remember playing with 7th edition online. But yeah, so we're gonna go through Invasion. Jake prepared this PowerPoint, so I'm completely unaware of the cards we're going to be looking at, which is kind of exciting. But yeah, let's jump right into this. We got a ton to get through. Cyclical evolution. All right, so we go through all the cycles, or at least all the cool, unique cycles of formats during cyclical evolution. And as mentioned, we got Invasion, so let's dive in. First, we've got Absorb and Undermine. This is a cool multicolor cycle. Jake, are a lot of these cycles going to be multicolor then? Or just a mix?
Well, not really, actually. A lot of them, surprisingly, are monocolor with, like, a multicolor flair to them. So they'll have, like, an off-color kicker or an off-color ability or something like that. But the majority of them aren't actually multicolor. Quite interesting.
Okay. All right, for this first one, we've got Absorb and Undermine. Both of them are counter spells. Both of them have 2 blue in the mana cost, and then it's a white for Absorb and a black for Undermine. So they're both 3 mana counters, hard counters. Absorb lets you gain 3 life. Undermine makes your, its controller lose 3 life. So what are your thoughts on these? Was Undermine played at the time at all?
No, I think,
remember?
I mean, Undermine's a great card. There's no denying it. A 3 mana counter that also lightning bolts your opponent is totally great. But Absorb was the one for control if you were going to play it.
Against Red Burn or something, that seems huge.
Yeah, just the life gain against aggro decks and anybody that wanted to kill you, it was just like, no, and I'll gain 3 life, actually.
It's almost the Sphinx's Revelation condition, where it's like that life gain with the card draw is everything. This counter with the life gain is so much better.
Yeah, it's pretty telling of like the power level on Absorb in particular that they have yet to reprint it, and they've had it available a lot. Like they could have done it in the original Ravnica, they could have done it again in this Ravnica, but they just will not reprint Absorb.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, someone burns you for 3, and then suddenly that's countered, and that's a 6-point life swing. That's huge for one spell.
I do think Undermine is totally legit to be, and they have reprinted it in like a dual deck, but I think that would have been fine as a Dimir card in Ravnica, or they could bring it back. Undermine's not overpowered, but they did Punish Ignorance as the mashup of these two, which I always liked that card, but it was never ever on the scale that these cards are individually.
Maybe we'll try and include it in the overall Magic cycles when we get to that point. But for now, let's go to the next slide. All right, we've got the Leech cycle. This definitely looks familiar. I remember this. So we've got Leech creatures of various mana costs. We've got Alabaster Leech in white, which is 1 white. Jade Leech in green, which is 2 and 2 green. Ruby Leech in red, which is colorless in a red. Sapphire Leech, which is a colorless in blue. Blue, obviously, and then Androdite Leech in black, which is 2 and a black. I've got a good mix of power and toughness, too. It seems like the only real overarching themes that connect these cards is the name creature type, and they all make the spells of their respective color cost 1 more of that color to cast.
Yeah. And they, like, 3 of them have extra abilities. I kind of think Alabaster Leech should have had Vigilance, you know? It wasn't keyworded at the time, but if they had just given it does not tap to attack or whatever the wording was at the time, attacking doesn't cause it to tap, I think they were using, that would have made that card a lot more relevant. But as a 1/3, it's not even a Savannah Lions or a Samaru, you know, it's not getting in, so it's not aggressive enough. But it did withstand a lot of the removal in limited, at least. And actually, as far as the limited aspect goes, you could throw these in your 3-color deck and feel pretty good about it if you had not a ton of their color of mana, you know, if you were mostly using it for kickers and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think my main issue with these is none of them are, like, bomby enough to justify the downside, it feels like. You know what I mean? Like a 2-mana 2/2 flyer, yes, it's good, but, you know, nowadays we've got Welkin Turn, which the downside is so much less abrasive than Sapphire Leech, you know, just can't block creatures with flying, has 1 toughness. But making all your spells cost 1 blue more, putting it in a rare slot seems very, very unnecessary.
I think Androdite Leech is actually fine because when you can no longer cast your black spells, then you have nothing to do but like pump more mana into it. The problem with it is it appears in a multicolor set and it's got a mono black pump, you know. So that's kind of the issue with that. But yeah, otherwise I think Jade Leech was the standout here, but it still wasn't that great.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, what is Emperor Crocodile again?
It's a 5/5 that you sack it when you control no other creatures.
I see. I almost like that more than Jade Leech, I think. Possibly.
I think so,
maybe
too.
not. That's actually tough to say.
I mean, it's up in the air. It's limited to the same color as the Leech. That it's not all your spells cost more. It's just green spells you play cost 1 green more to play. So like your white spell or red spell with kicker that's green is totally fine to play for its normal cost, you know, and things like that. So
that's true, and you always have to put it in the context of the time. You know, 4-mana 5/5s, still extremely powerful at the time.
Yeah, this would have been really difficult to remove in this format. Well, actually, not really. There were a ton of destroy target creatures at this time. They just went hog wild on that. I feel like black was just incredible at this time, but whatever.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We've got a land cycle. So we have Ancient Spring, which taps for a blue, and then you can tap and sack it for a white and a black. We've got Tender Farm, which taps for green, and then you can tap it and sack it and get red-white. Sulfur Vent taps for black, sacks for blue-red. Irrigation Ditch taps for white, sacks for green-blue. And Geothermal Crevice taps for red and sacks for black-green. So is it supposed to be the friendly or the... It's got to be all the friendly colors here. I see, okay.
Yeah, it's the shards. So I think this would have actually been kind of a cool cycle to see in Shards of Alara somewhere, just because it's so basic and, you know, it doesn't really... I suppose because the uncommon lands had tap in them already, you know, like, these are probably the better way to go.
I see. These aren't super exciting. I mean, I totally see you're right. It is absolutely a cycle. It's just I'm not terribly excited by it. It is at common, though, so I'm assuming you could pick them up fairly late.
Yeah,
you know?
It can ramp you to turn 3, you know, like, and there were cameos that would get you the permanent dual color mana. So there were things to do. It could ramp you to 5 or 6, and it could just get you that off-color kicker, you know, for one time, basically. So it's really... They were actually really good in this limited environment, I think.
I see. Now, were they played in Constructed at all, from what you can remember, or you think they would have been good enough?
No, we'll see another land cycle that they had, and then once Apocalypse was released, they had all the pain lands in Apocalypse, you know, the enemy pains. So these wouldn't have been good enough for Constructed. They're still fine for like Commander and in Limited for sure.
Okay. Next, cool looking cycle. We've got Angelic, another multicolor cycle. Angelic Shield in blue-white, Smoldering Tar in black-red, Fires of Yavimaya in red-green, Sterling Grove in green-white, and Seer's Vision in blue-black. So I'll let you kind of take the reins on this one. Looks like they all have a sack effect, which I'm assuming is how they're all connected.
Yeah, they're like a dual color enchantment cycle and all global. Their first ability is one color, and then their second ability is another color, basically.
Okay.
So with Angelic Shield, the white ability, that's the permanent ability, is all your creatures get +0/+1. And then the blue ability that you sacrifice to get is return target creature to its owner's hand.
Okay.
With Smoldering Tar, the black ability is at the beginning of your upkeep, target player loses 1 life. And then you can sacrifice it as a sorcery to deal 4 damage to a creature as the red ability. Fires of Yavimaya is creatures you control have haste for red, and then sack it to give target creature +2/+2 until end of turn for green. Sterling Grove is the Shroud ability on your enchantments for the green ability. And then the white ability is to do Enlightened Tutor, basically, for only enchantments. And then Seer's Vision is Telepathy on blue, which is your opponents play with their hands revealed. And then black is to coercion them. You get to sack it to look at their hand and make them discard a card of your choice, but only at sorcery speed.
That's kind of cool. I definitely remember Fires of Yavimaya was a deck. That was a big time card at the time.
And that one is like the standout of this cycle, I would say. A lot of like Angelic Shield, totally playable in limited, but Smoldering Tar too. You know,
I actually feel like that. Yeah, Smoldering Tar is definitely playable in limited. Definitely.
Yeah, to a creature, it's really great. So the top 3, or the 3 across the top there, are probably really great for limited. The bottom 2, they're better for commander, and you know, I don't even know that they made it into constructed decks necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, at the time with Sterling Grove, was there some pretty nice auras at least that you could search up? Some nice, you know, detrimental or positive benefit auras?
You know, I don't really know. That by this time, Control Magic was out. Treachery was around still. The thing with Sterling Grove is that it put it on top of your library too.
So it wasn't like pure. Yeah, it was a little bit of a setback.
Mm-hmm. But the real thing about it is, that it gives all of your other enchantments Shroud. So maybe Opalescence, but that was even that was 2 blocks back. So that would have been out of standard too. But Opalescence probably would have been the best way to utilize Sterling Grove.
It's kind of an odd picture on it, too, if you want to describe it. Do you know what kind of creature that is supposed to be?
Yeah, that's actually Molimo, which we'll get a better look at him in the next cycle, I think. But he's a Maro sorcerer from Llanowar, and then Multani is the Maro sorcerer from Yavimaya. But Molimo didn't really get much like screen time, I don't think, in the book or anything like that. He was just a legendary creature they added to the block. You know, like Vertaloth, just kind of there, but didn't really participate in the storyline.
This is a cool cycle. I actually very much dig this cycle. Angelic Shield, I think I had just straight up forgotten. That actually seems like a pretty damn good effect.
Yeah, it's very good. And when you consider that a lot of your creatures were 1 toughness, and a lot of your opponent's creatures were 1 toughness as well. And then a lot of the removal that really screwed creatures over was -1/-1, or like 1 damage to something. It was just like, this could really make or break your opponent's removal, you know. And then the fact that you can just bounce a creature if they play something like Annihilate or Agonizing Demise Kicked, where there's actually you're screwing them out of 2 effects by doing it.
Totally. Or offensively as like a tempo play.
Oh,
it's bounce your dude, now all my guys can get in safely.
Yeah, if the thing about this time though was that there wasn't like a great aggressive strategy, you know.
Slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, it was very pulled back, because a lot, like, you really needed to kick your big bomb, basically. It was like, I need this Vodalian Serpent not as a 4-mana 2/2, but as a 6-mana 6/6, you know, stuff like that.
All right, let's continue to move on here. Next we have Artifact Mutation and Aura Mutation. Got a name similarity there, but they're both rares. Artifact Mutation is green-red, Aura Mutation is white-green. And they both destroy, well, as you might imagine, Artifact Mutation destroys artifacts, and then it puts 1/1 Saproling creatures into play, where X is the converted mana cost of the artifact that's being destroyed. And then Aura Mutation is the same thing, except for enchantments only. which is misleading with the name because since this time
Well,
enchantments
yeah.
have been turned into auras, but
Mhm.
this hits any enchantment. These seem like very good, at the very least, sideboard spells. Or maybe you know better. Was there a pretty good artifact or enchantment sort of limited? Were they
In
highly played
limited,
in limited to make
in
these main
limited, there
deckable?
were the cameos in limited. So destroying your opponent's fixing and then getting 3/1/1s
That's
is pretty
huge.
good for artifact mutation. For aura mutation, I'm trying to think if there were any really great things that your opponent might play. There really aren't. I guess there might have been a few like of the collective restraint type where it was domain related. But I think Aura Mutation was probably more of a sideboard card. But yeah, Artifact Mutation could probably be justified if you were like a little low on playables as a main deck card.
I think
Because
another
there were
issue. I think another issue with what you said with the aura mutation is we just looked at a cycle of auras that all or enchantments that all sacrifice themselves.
yeah, only
So
two of those sack at sorcery speed. And so like, you know, if your opponent uses them right away, then you still don't get a chance to use it
true.
because they get priority on their turn. So
Seems
yeah,
like the
Aura
artifact
Mutation.
mutation is the better one then.
Yeah, I think so. And that's Molimo on Artifact Mutation.
Oh, okay. He looks different.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Ooh, this is a big cycle. But was this this must have been the first time we've got the double-sided cards, correct?
Yeah, the split cards.
Split cards.
Yeah, there's really no similarity other than, you get they're kind of cycles within themselves almost. Like Spite Malice, it literally is like can handle everything your opponent wants to do, except for destroying black creatures. So the Spite side is three colorless, one blue, counter target non-creature spell. Malice is 3 colorless, one black, destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regen. Stand and Deliver is stand is a combat trick. 1 white, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn. Deliver is return target permanent to its owner's hand, which they don't do much. And to see it on a 2 colorless, 1 blue spell is actually really unique. They don't really let you just bounce lands anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Wax Wane this probably is the one that has the most spread as far as like it doesn't really, Stand and Deliver is a great combat trick no matter which way you're using it. Wax Wane is like it's either a combat trick, which essentially it was a combat trick, or Wane is destroy target enchantment. Wax is +2/+2 for 1 green. Pain and Suffering is destroy a land for 3 colorless, 1 red, or Pain is target player discards a card from his or her hand for 1 black. That one's kind of meh.
Yeah, definitely.
All around. Suffering you might use in limited if they were really like 5 color or something like that, or wanted domain. That might work. Assault Batteries, I think for me it's Spite Malice, Assault Battery really defined this cycle. Assault Battery is assault for 2 damage to target creature, and it's a 1 red sorcery. And Battery is a 4 mana 3/3 elephant for 1 green and 3 colorless.
Mm-hmm. I think to me, because you couldn't cast both of them, right? So that was only
No.
until they got to Dragon's Maze where they added the I forget the mechanic's name now.
Fuse.
So that just seemed. I'm just still looking at these with the eyes like these are Fuse, but they're not. So I really feel like Fuse was a long time coming because all of these cards, it's like, God, how sweet would it be if you could cast both of them?
If you can imagine Stand Deliver as a Fuse card, that would have made it like 100 times better. Stand Deliver is one of those cards that you can cut from your deck, like if you have other things, in my opinion. Wax Wane, it was really wax. Like you hardly ever did Wane. I'm trying to think of like what was really an offensive enchantment that you wanted to do Wane with. Pain Suffering would have been sweet with Fuse too, and so would have Assault Battery. Spite Malice would have been really difficult, but it also would have been pretty cool to fuse it.
So it does make sense. You have to view these with because if you're a newer player and you're watching this, it probably makes a lot less sense pre-fuse, just like choosing to play one of the sides. But at the time, the versatility of these, I'm sure, was just insane.
Yeah,
because it was Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was just gonna say they differ from like a charm, because that was kind of my initial thought on them was like, well, how are these different from a charm? But it's really the mana cost changes, the color of the card itself changes. If it's in any zone other than on the stack, it's both colors. But once it's on the stack, it's like Spite is only blue. You don't
Okay.
even look at Malice, like, and that's how split cards work. So,
So they don't have to worry about some of them dodge the protections. Like if you've got a pro blue card, you can still cast Stand,
Yeah.
But I guess that targets the creature you're controlling. Maybe another better example would be like, I don't know.
Well,
Actually, none of
like
these
a
target.
pro red creature, you could still do battery and have a blocker for it. You
Yeah.
know, like that might be the best example there. But I guess Spite Malice too. I thought that was just the greatest because it was like exactly what you needed no matter when it was.
Definitely, very good. Yeah, like you said, I think Pain and Suffering is sort of the most underwhelming of all of these, but these are all very good. Assault Battery seemed very good for that time. Red green creature or removal spell. That is some intense versatility. So I'm very impressed with this cycle.
Assault burns the face too, so it was like
A finisher.
it could just be the last thing that you needed. Yeah.
Yeah, very versatile. Cool. All right, next we've got kicker spells. So we've got Banalish Emissary in white. We've got Urborg Emissary in black. Tolarian Emissary in blue. Verduran Emissary in green. And Shivan Emissary in red. They all have a friendly color kicker effect. Banalish Emissary is a 3-mana 1/4 with a 2-mana kicker in green that destroys a land, which is very weird to see that sort of on like a white-green mashup. That I definitely remember like Creeping Mold and versatile creature effects in green that have destroy land effects.
Well,
so that's not unusual. It's just weird to see it on a white spell.
White does get the Armageddon effect and stuff like that, but typically it's not targeted land removal. But white can also destroy any permanent. Also, like that's within the realm of white. So
that's true. Urborg Emissary in black is a 3/1, and it's got a blue kicker for 2, and you get to bounce a permanent. That card seems beautiful. What an amazing! I love that skill ability set. Tolarian Emissary, the blue one is a 1/2 flyer. It's got a white kicker, and it destroys an enchantment. Seems versatile enough, at least a very good sideboard option in limited. Verduran Emissary, the green one, is a 2/3 for 3. Always good in limited. And then 1 in a red kicker to destroy an artifact. And it can't be regenerated, so it's kind of trying to show you that, hey, don't worry about those regenerating artifact creatures. Maybe Jake can give some insight to what the hell that's referring to.
I don't really think there were a ton at this time. I don't really know why they added it, I guess, but it works, It just is interesting that they did it.
Okay. And then Shivan Emissary, 3-mana 1/1, kind of underwhelming, but it does have a kicker for 1 in a black that destroys a non-black creature, which we all know is very good, especially in limited. So this seems like a very solid cycle. All of these, not all of them. Some of them seem more playable without their kicker effect than others. Like Urborg Emissary, still a little bit of a beater. Banalish Emissary, Horned Turtle in white, fine. Verduran Emissary, 2/3, acceptable. Tolarian Emissary, a little bit underwhelming at the 1/2. And Shivan Emissary at this point is just straight up unplayable without the kicker effect.
Yeah, really, it is. Tolarian Emissary probably could have been a 2/1 at that cost, and still been justified, because then at least it was a pseudo Windrake.
That's a good point.
All of these like remove a permanent basically is kind of the thing, and they all have they're a really tight casting cost and kicker cycle. They're all wizards too.
Yeah, this is a great cycle. I would have been happy to play these. I feel like you and I did an invasion draft too, and I just can't recall exactly what we built, but check out SeemsGoodMagic.com and you can dig up our invasion draft that we did, because I'm almost positive that we did one. In fact, I know that we did, and it's starting to come to me a little bit what we played. I believe we had Armadillo Cloak. And so we would have been in color with that. So we were at least green-white. I believe, was pacifism around?
Not in this site.
Yeah, so then that would have been
They
when
had
we did
shackles,
the
though.
phasing. That would have been Mirage, so I'm probably crossing. I know what it was. We first picked the Daragaz. We first picked
Oh,
the
yeah.
three-colored dragon.
Mhm.
So that's a cool draft. I definitely recommend checking that one out because I think Jake and I did really well. We got a lot of green, sort of rampy color fixing
Yeah.
effects and
It's
managed to play Daragaz and
it's
completely blow out a guy who got
yeah.
mana screwed with it too.
It's really difficult to beat 6/6s in this format, like
Mhm.
especially ones that fly, and all of the black removal can't touch black creatures, and Daragaz has black in him, so it was
Oh
just
yeah,
he's
he
just a
just
beating.
dominated.
Yeah,
And if you don't remember him, actually, he's probably part of these cycles, huh? So
yeah, yeah,
we'll get
definitely.
to him. All right. Next, we've got okay, another monocolor cycle. Banalish Heralds in white, Vodalian Hypnotist in blue, Trenchworm in black, Treefolk Healer in green, and Firebrand Ranger in red. So this cycle, it appears to be creatures that have friendly color activated abilities. So
Mhm.
Banalish Heralds is a 4-mana 2/4 that you can pay 3 in a blue, tap, and draw a card. Loving that
So
one.
good. That's so good.
That seems very good. Vodalian Hypnotist is a 2-mana 1/1 with 2 in a black tap, and you can make an opponent discard. That's reasonable. It's not impressive too much, but definitely playable.
Mhm.
Especially if you're saying this is sort of a slower format, I could see that being more valuable.
Yeah.
Trenchworm, 3 in a black, 3/3, and that's got 2 in a red, tap to destroy a non-basic. You know, that seems much more of a annoying commander card than a
Mhm.
playable. I mean, the fact that it's a
It's
black
a
hill
hill
giant,
giant. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
makes it playable for sure. Tree
But it
folk.
also
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
it also takes out their fixing. Like there's another cycle of lands that we'll get to. Plus, there's that common sack cycle of lands too.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's true. Definitely. Treefolk Healer, 5-mana 2/3 in green. That's unimpressive, but it's got 2 in a white to tap and prevent 2 damage to a creature or player, which is a very powerful creature combat effect. And
yeah,
then we've got Firebrand Ranger, 2-mana 2/1, and you can pay a green and tap and put a basic land card from your hand into play. That one's a little bit underwhelming. We saw that on Walking Atlas, and
hmm
that card hardly saw any play. And that was a colorless version of this that just got to tap and bring
yeah.
in a
And
land.
also, it was any land, I think, and it was in a like block with landfall in it. So Firebrand Ranger doesn't really do much,
No, you're
I
right.
guess.
It was too. It seems like they were much too careful because until you pointed it out, I didn't even realize it was basic land card. So
Yeah,
that's true. It's yeah, that's pretty underwhelming. The Banalish Heralds kind of stands out as the real big time
yeah.
limited card.
Yeah, I actually am really unimpressed with Treefolk Healer. I would have rather that be like a 2/5 or something where it had like a even bigger butt, so that when you blocked and used its ability, which already costs 3 mana, that you could use it on yourself, instead of almost. I feel like there would be lots of times where you couldn't block with that successfully and not use it on itself,
I think 2/3 feels like a very unusual tree folk creature
Yeah.
type power toughness ratio.
hmm
You know, we're much more used to seeing like what you said, the 2/5s, even like the 1/4s seem
hmm
much more in character. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
so that is very odd, and the picture for some reason is kind of like making
Makes it
me
bigger.
confused, where it's like a laser beam is basically striking a white tree.
Well, you can see the face on the tree, right?
Yeah, on
And
the
the
right side.
sheltering a
Yeah,
druid. There's a
it,
druid like in the root area
I
that
see
it's
the
protecting.
druid. I also see. Oh, I see. So it's like the tree with the weird face is like shielding the druid from the.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Um, Overall, decent cycle. Like I
Yeah.
said, I think the variance between the power level on these is a little bit skewed. Firebrand
Oh, for
Ranger, not
sure.
really that impressive, but at least it's like a Goblin Piker effect.
hmm
So if, like what you said, it's not a very quick format, that seems like a pretty quick creature you could jam out real quick.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, it does get you to domain faster too, like further into the domain area, but there's so many better options in just mono green that could do the same thing that I don't know. It's really underwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
Firebrand Ranger.
I agree. Okay, that's cool. Next, all right, cameo cycle. You've been talking about it, so let's drop it. We've got Bloodstone cameo, 3-mana artifact, taps for black and red. Seashell cameo, 3 mana, white blue, Drake Skull, blue black, Trollhorn cameo is red green, and Tiger Eye cameo is green white. So we've got all of the friendly colors. Not all of them, I guess, but the.
No, it is.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. It's just 2 color pairings.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. And 3 mana. I mean, didn't. Which one am I? Oh, okay. I'm thinking of the ones from Mirage that were 2 mana, but they only tapped for 1 color.
Yeah.
So this at least, this kind of makes sense why you have to pay the extra mana. And once again, coming back to, you said it's a slower format, so it would make sense that you'd want a ramp spell like this. Probably not too clunky. Even in multiples, you could probably run a couple, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that they should have just got Donato Giancola, or whatever, however you say that, Giancola. I don't know.
To do them all?
Yeah, because Trollhorn and Tiger are like hands down the 2 best arts out of this cycle, and I really like Tiger Eye.
It's the inclusion of the hands, I think, that kind of really set it apart, you know?
Yeah, and that was like true when he, I assume, did the like the Throne of Bone cycle too, and did those arts.
Yeah.
Because they all had the hands, and I'm apparently just really good at doing hands.
Yeah, he is good at doing hands. That Tiger Eye cameo hand is like, the hands stand out more than the cameo does.
For sure.
And they look like elven, right? It's almost supposed to be like elven hands.
I would think so, yeah. I would think it's elven.
Okay.
I'm not sure which type of elf does body painting, but I would think that it's elves.
Okay. Moving on, not much to say about the cameos. We've got a rare cycle, Breaking Wave in blue. Rout is a white spell. Gitu Fire is red. Twilight's Call is black, and Saproling Symbiosis is green. All of these have, you may play them at instant speed if you pay an additional 2 colorless mana. The Breaking Wave, the blue one, this is some old school text on it, but you get to untap all tapped creatures and tap all untapped creatures. They decided simultaneously was a word that was needed.
Well, because if you do it in the way, like if you do it either way, then first it untaps everything, then it taps them all. You know what I mean?
I see. But
so
that's not the case now because effects are all resolved at once.
They still actually go in the order of the card. So you do it all on the order of the card. So I do still believe that it's... I'll just look it up here. I still believe the Oracle text is actually... Simultaneously. Let's see. Yep, it is.
Wow.
And the same with, like, there's one that says simultaneously phase out all phase in creatures with phasing or whatever. Simultaneously phase out all creatures with phasing and phase in all creatures that are phased out.
Well, I stand corrected.
They have to use simultaneously, yeah.
I would have sworn simultaneously was a word they would have been able to
obsolete
bypass somehow.
Yeah.
That seems strange that they needed to include it, but all right, that works. That's cool. Rout is the white one, destroys all creatures, so 5 mana or 7 mana at instant speed. Gitu Fire is a disintegrate style effect or Karavex torch style of effect, where if you pay 2 colorless, you can do it at instant speed. Twilight's Call is a 6 mana, basically return all creature cards from graveyard to play, but you can do that for 8 mana instead at instant speed. And then Saproling Symbiosis, which is 4 mana, put a Saproling creature into play for each creature you control, and it's not non-token, mind you. So even in multiples, it could get even more bonkers. And then you can pay 6 mana to do it at instant speed. So I'm really digging. Which one do you think? I've played Rout before. Definitely remember playing that. Gitu Fire, it's cool that it gives you the instant speed option, I guess. So I presume if you need to play it as a creature removal spell, then that's where that extra 2 cost really comes in handy. Twilight's Call to me really stands out as a cool 8 mana effect, because it's like, oh, you're swinging with your team. Well, suddenly I have all of my dead dudes back, and I get to control the blocking situation a lot better.
I think easily Rout and Twilight's Call are the best from this cycle, but like close behind is Gitu Fire and Saproling Symbiosis. Saproling Symbiosis requires that you build around it a little more. I will say that Breaking Wave is utterly useless, and like never would you play it as a sorcery for effect, other than to post combat untap all your guys that you attacked with. There is no reason that this card should have had this. Like this card shouldn't exist basically because it should just be a 6 mana like instant with that effect on it, you know.
Mm-hmm. You're right. It seems worthless at sorcery speed.
It's totally worthless. It is totally worthless at sorcery speed. It just drives me nuts, like to think about how that got to a card, comparing it to Route, which is like, yeah, if I need it at 5 mana on my turn, I'll do it, but I will almost like always want to do it at the end of your turn for 7, you know. And Gitu Fire actually benefits from being either one. Like the sorcery just like goes at their face. Or you can instant speed it, like you said, on a creature for good effect. And Twilight's Call, even, just to get all your guys back if they've been killing your shit like the whole game at 6 mana is fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, Breaking Wave, total turd.
Yeah, that sucks. So that kind of throws off the chi of this cycle a little bit. But the other ones make intuitive sense, and I think they're very good. So moving on. Breath of Daragaz and Canopy Surge. So Breath of Daragaz is red. It's got kicker 2 colorless, and it deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. And if you paid the kicker, it deals 4 damage to each creature without flying. So 2 mana, 1 to each creature, or 4 mana, 4 to each creature without flying. That's huge.
It's also to players.
And player. Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. That card seems really bonkers, actually.
Yeah.
Then we've got Canopy Surge, which is 2 mana with the 2 colorless kicker, deals 1 to each creature with flying each player, and then same thing, you pay the kicker 4 to each creature with flying and each player instead. This is these cards seem really powerful, even by today's standards. I would say these are very strong spells.
Breath of Daragaz, I'd say, is like hands down the best because there were so many. We'll get to some cycles, but there were so many 1/1s that were on the ground that this would just be a total board wipe a lot of times. And once you kicked it for only 4 mana, it's like, yeah, you're just like clearing the board for sure. So this was like
finishing the game.
Yeah, it's an uncommon Wrath of God. Breath of Daragaz is basically, and Canopy Surge too, to a lesser extent, could be like a game winner as well. So.
Oh yeah, against the blue-white Flyers deck, that's a total hose. It's really to me, I'm very surprised they opted for 4 damage since 3 is like the standard. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And 3 would have made intuitive sense since it would have been like the first version is playing Earthquake for 1. The kicked version would be playing Earthquake for 3.
Yeah.
You know?
So it gets better. Unbelievable. That's a really cool cycle. All right. Let's check out the next one. All right. This is the land cycle. I do remember this land cycle now. Okay. So this is an uncommon land cycle. You've got Coastal Tower. They all intertapped. Coastal Tower taps for blue-white. Shivan Oasis taps for green-red. Elfheim Palace is green-white, Urborg Volcano is black-red, and Saltmarsh is blue-black. So these all, I'm sure, were all played, and they were probably played at the time too, right? A little bit at least.
I think so. I mean, I also do. In 7th edition, they did have the Pain lands, so these probably didn't see as much. They were definitely needed to be there for Invasion Block Limited, and then also Invasion Block Constructed, you know.
Okay.
So they still got played, and they still are great for Commander because any dual lands you can get are fine.
All right. Not much to say. Kind of cool art on them, but let's move on. All right. Next we have Crimson Acolyte and Obsidian Acolyte. So these are still maintaining the age-old white theme of being pro-black and pro-red. So Crimson Acolyte, 2 mana, 1/1. It's got pro-red. And you can pay a white and give a creature pro-red. Jeez. And then Obsidian Acolyte, 2 mana, 1/1, pro-black. And then it's got 1 white, give a creature pro-black. These are so overpowered.
Ultimate posers, yeah. At common, it's like everybody and their mom can get one. And even if you can only activate it once or twice in a turn, it's like they can't do shit about the one guy that's got the ability. And then no matter what you're... In Obsidian Acolyte in particular, no matter what you're targeting, they're going to protect. Crimson Acolyte, you know, there's more mass red removal than there is black mass removal. So you know, you need a little more white for Crimson Acolyte, but still, these are both just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. The
It's
only
like
thing they could have done to make them worse would be to make them rebels, you know?
they regressed. It's like I thought
Yeah.
they were finally starting to get on a path towards finding balance with protection, and then they printed this. What
I
were they
know.
thinking?
I know.
Shouldn't these, if they have that activated ability, at least tap?
Or cost like 3 or something. You know, like 1 mana on a 2 mana 1/1 is ridiculous. It's just because then you play another 2-drop the next turn and are able to protect it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you can continue to creep your board while protecting whatever you're laying. It just they really didn't realize how powerful protection was
Yeah, I would
until
have
much
thought
later.
at this time they'd know, but they dropped the ball on this one. That is too good. All right, next. Here we go. So now we're into the 3-color dragon territory. Jake and I had drafted Daragaz the Igniter. That was definitely our first pick. He is Jund colors, so black, red, green. They're all 6/6 flying dragons, so I'll just go through their colors and abilities. Daragaz has the you can pay 2 and a red. They all are, when they deal damage to a player, you get to pay 2 and 1 of their colors.
No, it's like their main color.
Okay.
So.
And then you get a cool ability out of it. So Daragaz, you get to pay 2 and a red, choose a color, they reveal their hand, and it deals X damage to them, where X is the number of cards revealed of that color. Rith the Awakener is Naya colored, so red, green, white. And when it deals damage to a player, play 2 and a green, and you get a Saproling for each permanent of a color that you choose. They all have choose a color, too. I didn't... Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yep. And then Croesus the Purger is Grixis, blue, black, red. You pay 2 and a black, choose a color, and they reveal their hand, discard all cards of that color.
So
that's pretty crazy, too. Trevor the Renewer, he's Bant, so green, white, blue. You pay 2 and a white, choose a color, and you gain 1 life for each permanent of that color. That might be the most underwhelming one. And then you've got Dromar the Banisher, and he is Esper, white, blue, black. Pay 2 and a blue, choose a color, return all creatures of that color to their owner's hand. Jeez. This is a mighty cycle.
I think Dromar is actually kind of meh, too, because he's 3 colors already, so the only 2 colors you get to choose are red and green without having to bounce himself.
Oh, I see. No, you're absolutely right. It
Dromar,
is not. Okay.
Dromar probably should have been all creatures
your opponent controls.
Your opponent's control, or that player controlled,
yeah.
or even like all permanents, because then it would be like, okay, you know, I'm blue, white, black. I don't have to really commit anything to the board. I'll just play this 6/6, and then if I really need to, I can board wipe, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. These are all very good, super efficient, especially considering the time. 6 mana, 6/6 flyer, very good. 3-color, we already just kind of went through the cameos and the multicolor lands. So even powering this out on turn 5 with the help of those geothermal crevice cycle sort of thing would have been absolutely acceptable. These are very powerful cards. Very cool. I'm not sure if any of them actually saw constructed play.
Oh, I think Rith for sure, and I would be surprised if Daragaz and Croesus didn't as well. I think Treva and Dromar are the 2 meh kind of. So they probably didn't really see any constructed play. Dromar in particular, I think, was really bleh. That ability is just so underwhelming when you consider how many colors he is, you know? They really should have done something else. Like they choose a color, they reveal their hand, and you draw cards equal to the number of cards revealed that way of that color.
Yeah.
You know, something like that would have been more appropriate.
Yeah. Very cool cycle. I'd recommend checking out the pictures. All right. Next, we have a Attendant artifact cycle. So we've got Croesus's Attendant, who looks a lot like Iron Man. Rith's Attendant, Daragaz's Attendant, Treva's Attendant, and Dromar's Attendant. So all these names should sound familiar. They're all of the dragons. I'm assuming these cards' main purpose was to fix for the dragons. So they all are 5 mana, 3/3 golem creatures. They all have 1 and sack, and they add the 3 different colors of the dragon that they're aligned with, basically. So these seem super awesome if you you're playing limited and you happen to pick up that Elder Dragon first pick or something, right?
I actually really like the art on these. the way that they incorporated like the jewels and the chest plates to be exactly the colors of the dragons themselves and stuff like that.
Very cool. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
I also like that the dragons are present in the picture too.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a nice little view of that.
In the case of actually, like they all kind of have a color scheme going on, like except for Crossus's attendant. Rith's attendant has horns like Rith does. Daragaz's attendant is just like a kind of a very solid gold looking thing, which is, I don't know, they're all really reminiscent, or at least you can tell they're related to the dragon. Crossus's attendant being maybe the odd one out.
Okay.
But they're still cool. I really like the art on those.
Definitely. And these all seem like they would have been fine as 5-mana 3/3s in, colorless. That's fine. All right. Next, we have a monocolor aura cycle. So we've got Crown of Flames in red, Shimmering Wings in blue, Mourning, but not like Morning Night, Mourning like I'm sad, in black, Whip Silk in green, and Shackles in white. So Crown of Flames gives fire breathing, and then you can pay a red and bounce Crown of Flames to its hand. Shimmering Wings gives flying, pay a blue, bounce it to its hand. Mourning gives -2, -0, pay a black, bounce it to its hand. Whip Silk gives reach, and then you can pay a green and bounce it. And then Shackles makes it so a creature doesn't untap, and you can bounce it for a white. So I really am digging the Shackles. That seems like a nice nice way to sort of lock down the most powerful creature on the board. Is that more of a... That seems unusual for white. That is more of a blue ability now, isn't it? The not untap?
Yeah, I think that if this had been made now, it would be something like
can't attack.
Does not attack or block or whatever, and probably be even one more mana if it's bounceable like that.
Like Defang, right? Isn't Defang essentially Shackles, like the updated white version of it, maybe?
Yeah. Interesting, though, is like that this was a time when combat damage was on the stack, so cards like actually Mourning in particular and Crown of Flames could hold some more value because you could put Crown of Flames on a 1/1 that you had, attack with it. If they blocked, just pump it as far as it could go, wait for combat damage to go on the stack, then bounce it. And the same with Mourning, put it on their creature, block it, wait for combat damage on the stack, and then bounce it so that you didn't lose your enchantment. So these were a little more annoying as far as Crown of Flames and Mourning go.
Well, Crown of Flames would still be super useful, right? Because you could still pump the creature and then still bounce your Crown of Flames. You don't.
Oh yeah, actually, you're right. Crown of Flames is legit that way. Mourning, though,
I definitely see the Mourning value, though. Yeah, with the combat damage on the stack.
Yeah.
This is still a cool cycle idea. I think the main issue I have with auras, or basically cards like this in general, are the overvalue that you get with cards like what's the Verduran Enchantress? You know, where it's like you just get this.
And Verduran is just like 2 green, draw a card, 2 green, draw a card.
Yeah. Too good in my mind. I know it's very combo-ish or whatever, but I think that's kind of why I feel like they've kind of drifted away from this idea of very cheap spells that can cheaply be played again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it like opens itself up for brokenness.
They can abuse. It's easier to abuse for sure.
Into the battlefield effects with enchantments. Like even now, think about it right now. It's really funny with the what's the mechanic I'm thinking of from the last set in Theros? Constellation. With Constellation, all of these spells would have been like, think of these were printed in a Constellation set.
Obviously Shimmering Wings, Crown of Flames, and Whip Silk would be the most broken because you can just pay 2 mana to get the effect over and over again. Yeah, Constellation would be absurd with these in standard.
Kind of the only part that you have to be mindful, and I'm sure Hasbro or the design team, of future sets, it has to be mindful of, is renewable into the battlefield abilities at a cheap cost. Because like you said, Shackles and Mourning, it doesn't feel as broken when it costs a little bit to do it. Okay, moving on, we've got Crusading Knight, Marauding Knight. Crusading Knight is white, 2 and 2 white for a 2/2 pro black. It gets +1/+1 for each swamp your opponents control. Jeez. And then Marauding Knight is 2 and 2 black for 2/2 pro white, and it gets +1/+1 for each planes your opponents control. Well, at least this time around they gave black, you know, their own way to combat white with it.
It's just the problem with pro white is that it doesn't matter most of the time because
Wrath of God.
Yeah, because they always get the wrath effect. So like pro black actually screws black over because they really are targeting your creatures to remove them. And then not only that, but you have like maybe a card like Mutilate, or like later on in Apocalypse they came out with Planner Despair, which could actually do a pseudo board wipe, but it goes by minuses, you know? And Crusading Knight could still get away from, well, for one, Mutilate couldn't kill Crusading Knight no matter what, you know?
Why is that?
Because
for each swamp you control.
Yeah,
no, you're right.
Yeah.
No, that's right, because it would be too big.
Yeah, it'd just be a 2/2 at the end of it all. So you could, yeah, and I don't know. I think this is, I don't know. I think Crusading Knight is really great. I really just don't like it because I think this could have been Marauding Knight by itself, and then they could just have Obsidian Acolyte because that card is just so bonkers compared to this one.
Plus, the Marauding Knight looks a lot cooler than Crusading Knight.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, Crusading Knight's kind of shit. The art.
Sorry, Edward Beard Jr.
Yeah, but good job, Darren Bader.
All right. Let's move on unless you got something you want to add to it.
Nope.
All right. They're rare, too, I should add. So
yeah, I
guess I'm glad of that. At least you won't see them a lot. All right. Next, we've got a kind of unusual cycle, it looks like. We've got Essence Leak in blue, Samite Ministration in white, Phyrexian Slayer in black, Wallop in green, Lightning Dart in red, and Phyrexian Reaper in black. So maybe, Jake, you want to sort of say the tie that binds all of these cards?
So this is the color hosing cycle of this set.
Okay.
And the blue one, Essence Leak, is a enchant permanent. So it's an aura with enchant permanent. If enchanted permanent is red or green, it has at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this permanent unless you pay its mana cost.
Very good.
And mana cost does include color, so you would have to do that again.
Okay.
The Samite Ministration is prevent all damage that would be dealt by a source of your choice to you this turn. Whenever damage from a black or red source is prevented that way, you gain life equal to the damage. So it's a great way to counter red damage. So like a burn deck really wouldn't be able to fight you if you were playing this against them.
It's almost like reverse damage, except one white color less. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it can always be used as a damage prevention shield, like no matter what. So it's in my opinion, reverse damage is like kind of crap, but this is like a little more versatile because it only costs one white, and it it'll always prevent damage to you from something.
Okay.
Wallop is a one colorless, one green sorcery, destroy target blue or black creature with flying. A little limited in its usefulness. A little bit narrow, I'd say. Yeah, I think that they could have gone as far as doing one green on it, actually, is what I was thinking. Like, green hardly gets removal. It's only hitting one of two, or like 2 of 5 colors, and they have to have flying. It's just so limited that it really, and they slapped it into sorcery, so it really could have just been one green.
Okay.
Lightning Dart deals 1 damage to target creature. Very good, no matter what. And then if that creature is white or blue, it deals 4 damage instead.
That's very good.
Yeah, and that you could just use to kill any of, well, there's like a bunch of cycles, or at least 2 that we'll see coming up, where that's still useful if it's even 1 damage. Okay. And then Phyrexian Slayer, Phyrexian Reaper is the kind of odd cycle. It's for black. And these were the only ones that were common. And it's the Phyrexian Slayer has flying somehow. And
weird,
whenever it becomes blocked by a white creature, destroy that creature and it can't be regened. And then Phyrexian Reaper is 5 mana, 3/3. Whenever it becomes blocked by a green creature, destroy that creature, it can't be regened.
Plus, it's like wielding a drill of some sort.
Yeah, a drill gun. I don't know.
That's
See,
cool.
old Phyrexians used to have like really advanced like
technology.
technology, lasers and shit like that even. So they're cool. Like they nothing was like out of the realm of possible, I guess is what I should say for Phyrexians, old Phyrexians. But yeah, I'd say that Lightning Dart, hands down, the best card out of this cycle, and then Phyrexian Reaper is probably next. I don't think Phyrexian Slayer is actually that useful, because the pro-black creatures that are in this set, you can't even block it with them.
Yeah.
So you're not even getting around the pro-black, really, other than the fact that you're flying over it. I don't know. It's really underwhelming Phyrexian Slayer as compared to Phyrexian Reaper. And I just think that they could have done Phyrexian Reaper as like a hill giant at uncommon with whenever a white or green creature blocks it, destroy it, you know. They should have just mashed the two together and made it cheaper and uncommon.
And it would have made more sense for the cycle too, but
right.
Okay. That's cool. Essence Leak actually seems pretty sideboardable and limited too. I kind of like that.
Oh, for sure. If you slap that on one of the legendary dragons, it could be really great.
Oh yeah, but even on a cheap creature, a 3-mana dude or something, it can be annoying enough to. Anytime blue's got some removal that can cause the creature to be sacrificed, I'm usually excited by it. I think it's cool.
Or even slowing your opponent down a little bit is nice too. So.
Which we know blue loves. Yeah. All right. Moving on, we've got a multicolor cycle. Galena's Knight is blue-white. They're all 2/2s, and they're all friendly color mana costs. So Galena's Knight's blue-white 2/2 pro-red, Merfolk Knight creature. Vodalian Zombie is blue-black 2/2 pro-green. It's a Merfolk zombie. Llanowar Knight is green-white 2/2 with pro-black, and it's an Elf Knight. Yavimaya Barbarian is red-green 2/2, and it's got pro-blue, and it's a Barbarian Elf. And then you have Shivan Zombie, which is black-red 2/2 with pro-white, and it's a Barbarian Zombie. So it looks like you've got some interesting creature types going on. 2 of each, I imagine, since you've got 2 Barbarians, 2 Zombies, 2 Merfolk, 2 Knights, and 2 Zombies? Did I say that already? 2 Elves.
Yeah.
So
this is like one of the few times where they did like the creature type mashup. Actually, up till this point, they were really just sticking to like one usually.
Okay.
So to see the 2 creature types on it made them a lot cooler, you know. And then they continued. We'll see in Apocalypse they continued this idea with the cycle of 2 drops in that set too.
Okay. Not much to say. They all have pro colors, so they all seem pretty playable. I definitely remember jamming Vodalian Zombie in some pre-con Magic Online deck that I bought that had like the Swamp Crocodile, and it had like a Harpy, had like a blue-black Harpy on it too. So that was a cool deck. That was fun to play. Somehow I was beating people with it. I think the Balthor the Defiled deck was like the deck to beat at the time I was playing Magic Online, where they brought back the 6/3 dude that made your opponent lose like, what was it, 6 life or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, like what was that one?
Laquatus Champion or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like the deck to beat at the time. So some of these guys were pretty good. I mean, Vodalian Zombie kind of stands out as being a good one because green creatures are known for being, you know, super badasses. So being able to just lock one down is nice. Okay. Next, we've got Djinn cycles. We have Goham Djinn in black, Sulam Djinn in green, Halam Djinn in red, Zanam Djinn in blue, and Ruham Djinn in white. They're all 6 mana, but they have different power toughness. So Goham Djinn in black is a 5/5 with 1 and a black regenerate, and it gets -2/-2 as long as black is the most common color among all permanents or is tied for the most common. I've seen this effect before, and it tends to confuse me. Sulam Djinn, 6 mana 6/6 with trample, then it gets -2/-2 is if green is the most common color among all permanents or is tied. Halam Djinn, 6 mana 6/5 in red with haste, and it gets -2/-2 if red is the most common color. Zanam Djinn, 6 mana 5/6 flyer, and it gets -2/-2 if blue is the most common color, and then Ruham Djinn is 6 mana 5/5 first strike, and it gets -2/-2 if white is the most common color. So they all have very relevant abilities.
They're all super good, yeah. If you get them as their full potential, basically. in the art, it's interesting to note that like both Goham Jin and Zanam Jin are fucking with Llanowar elves, and then Sulam Jin and Ruham Jin are fucking with Phyrexians, and then in Halam Jin it's killing Metathran.
I see.
So they're all like opposing colors, just stomping all over opposing colored enemies, basically.
Okay. Yeah, that is cool. I didn't even notice that. So you can even see what they're fighting against. They all look very big, as expected. But like I was just saying when I was reading it early, that effect is very confusing, or can be very confusing in muddled board states where you have a bunch of different colors going on. It kind of sucks when you're like, because also think about it this way: if a big combat happens, and then at the end of the combat, suddenly green is the most common color, Sulam Jin might just die at the end of the combat, you know?
Right.
So it gets confusing.
And there's multicolor, so if you have multiple Jins out, and then like everybody's got like 2 or 3 multicolor creatures, it becomes really annoying to count what the most like really all you need to know is what the most common color is, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, so but you still in a multicolor format, you're still probably checking to see if like between 3, 4, or 5 colors, you know, like which one is the most common.
Yeah, and then maybe your opponent, it's advantageous to them to perhaps bounce one of their permanents to disrupt the the number of green permanents or whatever color permanents on the board. So there's just I think these cards go very deep. And
yeah, I think that if they were to do this again, like it would only check your permanents, because then if you had just the Jin on the board, it would not be more beneficial to you, and then you would have to be playing at least 2 other colors, and you couldn't play any gold cards that shared a color with it, basically, to really get the effect.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They are very fairly costed, but you should have to work a little bit to get a 1 colored mana plus 5 colors mana huge creature that, has a great effect.
Okay. I can agree with that. All right. Next, we've got a Weaver cycle. So we have Spirit Weaver, Rage Weaver, Spirit Weaver in white, Rage Weaver in red, Hate Weaver in black, Sky Weaver in blue, and Might Weaver in green. All of them have a 2 colorless mana activated ability that gives their friendly colors and abilities. So Spirit Weaver gives green or blue creature +0/+1. Rage Weaver gives a black or green creature haste. Hate Weaver gives a blue or red creature a fire breathing. Sky Weaver gives white or black creatures flying. And Might Weaver gives red or white creatures trample. So they're all 2/1s. Anything you want to kind of note about these? I think Might Weaver to me is like a little bit weird because red and white creatures aren't creatures I'm typically giving trample to.
Right. They are most of the time the creatures that are in need of like actually buffing, really, like if they hadn't have already distributed +0/+1 and +1/+0, I probably would have given that to them. Is First Strike on here at all? No. So it might have been actually more to their benefit to do Spirit Weaver as First Strike and then Might Weaver as +0/+1 or something.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I could see that. Maybe it wouldn't have been intuitive to the name, though, because Might, you think power,
Strength.
You don't think toughness. But Hate Weaver kind of stands out as a really strong one, given fire breathing like that. I
think Sky Weaver is really great, too.
True.
Like, to give evasion.
I like it.
And I guess Rage Weaver is probably one of the more disappointing, just because I always hate haste as an ability to give something from a permanent you already have out, because it's just like, and especially at 2 mana, it's like, so I have to make, I have to make, say, my creature costs 2 mana more just to give it haste, and I don't know.
That's
pretty
a good
disappointing.
Point.
And you only get it the turn it comes out, so.
Spirit Weaver and Hate Weaver to me seem like the really bomb ones, just because they actually can change, combat situations quite a bit. Throwing off your opponent's combat math is always a good thing, because it makes tricks. It basically forces them to have a trick or an answer, and they're going to want to take out the Weaver. So it's nice. They really draw attention to themselves too.
Actually, Rage Weaver probably should have been First Strike. like instead of haste. Just to
It's
say.
a red ability. That's true. It
Yeah.
would have been more useful. Would have been a great combat trick at that point too. Definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the problem. Maybe that was too good.
Yeah, and combined with Hate Weaver, I guess you can't really combine it with Hate Weaver in any way. Yeah, you can't really.
But
Because they
still,
don't really
giving
share
first
that.
strike for black or green, especially green creatures, yeah. If they already had trample too, that would be insane. All right, moving on. We've got the Apprentice cycle. So we have Nightscape Apprentice in black, Thornscape Apprentice in green, Stormscape Apprentice in blue, Thunderscape Apprentice in red, and Sunscape Apprentice in white. So these are all 1-mana 1/1s, and they have friendly color activated abilities that tap them. So Nightscape Apprentice, the black one, lets you pay a blue and tap and put a creature you control on top of its owner's library, or a red and tap and give it any creature first strike. Thornscape Apprentice, white and tap a creature, and it's a Thornscape Apprentice is a green one, and then red and tap and give a creature first strike. So I think what we're going to find is any instance of one color does the same thing.
Yeah, yep, that's how this cycle works for sure.
So then
it's like the Guild Mage cycle from Mirage.
Okay.
It was the same.
Stormscape Apprentice, blue one, so it's got the white one that lets you tap, and it's got the black ability which lets you tap and make a player lose a life. So Thunderscape Apprentice has the tap to make a player lose a life, or green, give a creature +1/+1, and then Sunscape Apprentice has the green one, so it can buff a creature, and it has the blue one that lets you put a creature on top of its owner's library. I think maybe the Thornscape Apprentice seems like the best one to me, because green typically doesn't get good removal, so being able to be green-white and tap down stuff is very nice, and also, or just being able to give first strike to anything is awesome. So I'm pretty impressed with the green one. Is there anyone you wanted to mention?
I think that the only two that are kind of underwhelming are the two that have the blue abilities in them.
Yeah.
So Nightscape and Sunscape. But Thornscape, Stormscape, and Thunderscape are actually all pretty impressive. Thunderscape is cool because no matter what, it can deal an extra damage to your opponent, but it can also like screw up combat. And then Stormscape is like, if it's early in the game and you have the black mana, you can just ping, and then once you need to keep something locked down, you can.
Definitely am digging the white tap activated ability. That to me, I think, is far and away the best one. Followed by either first strike or giving +1/+1. I can't really decide which one of those I prefer, which one I think is better. And then after that, probably like you said, the blue abilities last. So the black ability, even though it's, a consistent make a player lose one life, I'm not as... It's okay. It's not bad.
Yeah. I do think that the green ability trumps the black one for sure, but the black ability is nice if you're in a creature stalemate.
That's
at
true.
the very least.
Yeah, which happens. And maybe it happened more often in this format. If it's a slower one, maybe you just get these really bulky board states. Okay, next we have the Master Cycle. So these are like the next tier of the apprentices. We have the Thunderscape Master. All of these are 4-mana 2/2s. They're all rares. Thunderscape Master has 2 black and tap. Target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Or 2 green and tap. Creatures you control get +2/+2. Jesus.
Yeah.
Sunscape Master has the green ability, so creatures you control get +2/+2. Or 2 blue and tap. Return target creature to its owner's hand, so a bounce straight up. And that's the White Master. The Black Master, Nightscape, has the blue one, so it can bounce a creature, or it can be 2 red and tap and deal 2 damage to any creature. Very good. The Green Master, Thornscape, has the red ability, so it can deal 2 damage to a creature, and it has the white ability, which target creature gains protection from the color of your choice. Also very good. And then we have Stormscape Apprentice, which has the white ability, so it can give protection, or the black ability, target player loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Very cool cycle. The green ability stands out to me as being definitely the most...
Bonkers?
Yeah. +2/+2, even without giving trample like Overrun. That is still insane. Very insane.
No, I agree. I think that this cycle is actually hard to gauge. I know that Stormscape Master is probably the last place, but like all of the other ones are just... I mean, you would still take Stormscape Master first pick I think, no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
because you
Yeah.
wouldn't want to see a master played against you at all. The white ability is like notable too because you can target your opponent's creatures to destroy their own auras and stuff like that, or like counter spells that are targeting them. But I think the white ability is probably the least useful here. Nightscape Master might be my favorite because it's two ways to remove creatures, and outright killing 1 and 2 toughness guys, or just bouncing guys that are too big for it to kill normally. But yeah, I don't know. They're all very, very good. It's hard to place
I mean,
these in an order.
one downside we should at least mention, you can't just like throw these in any deck. You know what I mean?
No,
Like with
you
the
have to be
apprentice
dedicated.
creatures, you could splash for one of those
Yeah.
abilities and it wouldn't matter. You can't splash for these. These all require you to be dedicated to at least
Tricolor.
one of those other colors. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would play or Thornscape Master in a green-red deck for sure. I would play Nightscape Master in a black-red deck or a blue-black deck. I would definitely play Sunscape Master in white and green or white and blue. And yeah, I think all of them I would play in a 2-color deck for sure, or a 3-color deck if it was only half of their ability.
I think you'd have a real hard time playing this in a 3-color deck. You know what I mean? You'd have to have some real good fixing.
Yeah, you'd have to have the right fixing. Like, you'd need at least a couple cameos and probably at least a couple of the uncommon lands, too. So you'd have to be fixed very, very well.
But it's like you said with the 2-color, all of these are phenomenal. I'm a very big fan of all of these cards. So that's a cool cycle, and they're all wizards. All right, next we've got yet another land cycle, and I see... I see. So Jake's included, we've got Core Haven from Nemesis, Teferi's Isle from Mirage, Volrath Stronghold from Stronghold, and Yavimaya Hollow from, which one is that again?
Destiny. Urza's Destiny.
Urza's Destiny. And then Keldon Necropolis from Invasion is a legendary land, like the aforementioned lands, and then it's got... can tap for a colorless, or you can pay 4 in a red, sack a creature, and deal 2 damage to a creature or a player. And that, to me, I believe that was in Vintage Masters. I want to say I played against it in Vintage Masters a couple times, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I don't play online that much, so don't know for sure.
So this finishes off this cycle, or at least adds to it.
Well, this is like their mega cycle, and it's their first one where, like, over the course of 5 blocks, they had 1 card that added to it each time. They started it with Teferi's Isle, which is just very clearly the worst of the cycle. And then the second one in it was Volrath Stronghold, then Core Haven, then Yavimaya Hollow, then Core Haven, then Keldon Necropolis.
Okay.
And like you can see the similarity actually becomes they all have another ability, but then they can tap for colorless mana. Or I should say, they have an activated ability that's like a colored mana something. And then they all have this other mana ability, except for Teferi's Isle, which, I mean, this is why it's a stupid cycle, because they screwed it up with Teferi's Isle. But I think they corrected it with Time Spiral when they made Academy Ruins, which is just like Volrath Stronghold, but blue and 1 colorless tap, put a artifact card from your graveyard on top. So they realized that Teferi's Isle was really the shittiest card of this cycle when they did it.
Well, I'm excited to add on to this cycle as we come across more of these lands. But Keldon Necropolis certainly seems like a totally playable limited effect.
Yeah.
I would love to. I mean, you can shock the player with it. So very, very cool card.
Or trade creatures with them that, like, you can chump something and then trade a different creature off that they have.
How about this, too? Actual way to get rid of Crimson Acolyte.
Yeah, very true. That's actually a really good point with that.
So that's cool.
Yeah, also notable, I guess, is that combat damage used the stack, so you could use a 1 power guy to take out a 3 toughness guy in combat.
And then sack it. You could, like... Yeah, that's true. Or you could even trade an X1 creature with your 1/1 and then damage on stack, sack it, and deal 2 damage to something else like their face. So that's true. That's a really good point, and that's really important to mention too, because in any situation where your creature is going to trade, you can just turn that into 5 mana, deal 2 damage to their face or another creature as well. Very good.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, well, I guess that's it for this week. We didn't quite have time for Weird Harvest, but thanks for tuning in. What do we got in store for next week, Jake?
It is. Oh God, what is it?
Is it
Plane
the
shift?
plane
It's
shift?
plane
Yeah.
shift. Yeah. And then if there aren't, I know there is a ton of cycles in plane shift, so I shouldn't even say that. But then apocalypse after that.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I apologize for the lateness. That was totally my fault. We'll both see you next week. Have a good one.
Later.